Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today, I'm going to be making a Dawn Warrior class guide-ish, kind of. I've been playing Dawn Warrior for about 200 days now, about 150 in Reboot, and then the rest in Aurora slash Windia. And I thought it was time. I gave my 2 cents on what I think is good and bad about this class, how you should play it, how one should start playing it, blah blah blah, and all that stuff, and just explaining all the different skills that Dawn Warrior has because he is a very unique warrior. And before I start, I just want to let you guys know this is not the end all be all of Dawn Warrior and all this class has to offer. This is just my 2 cents based off of my experience in playing with the class, and you should always not take my word to be final, and you should always try things for yourself and see if you enjoy it or not. And without further ado, I'll start by talking about first job. Actually, I lied. Noblesse skills, Dawn Warrior has the same as any other Cygnus Knight, so I'm not going to go over it, but it's literally the exact same. So, yeah. Next, for the first job, Dawn Warrior has 4 skills, 3 of which are buffs, 2 of which are passives. Your main buff is going to be Soul Element. In this, I'm not main buff, but your only buff for this job is going to be Soul Element, which gives you an immobility debuff chance. It's pretty useless, I think. But you do want the passive 10% ignore monster defense, which is why you want to max the skill out. The next skill, Hand of Light, gives you 20 passive attack, increases your damage, which is what you very, very much need for this job. Inner Voice is another passive buff that gives you max HP, defense, speed, jump, and max speed. The only thing that really matters from this passive is the max HP, but at the same time it doesn't really matter. It helps you at lower levels versus mobs because you can tank their hits. It doesn't matter so much late game because every boss pretty much hits you for either 10, 80, 20, or 90% of your HP, so your max HP doesn't really matter. Triple Slash is going to be your one mobbing skill. It sucks. You want to use this just to get to level 30. Once you're level 30, you're done. Forget this skill. There's better skills in second, third, fourth job. And this is the one skill you don't max. So when I started off, I put 1 point into Triple Slash, 1 point into Soul Element. I'm pretty much 1 point into every single skill. And from there, I maxed out Hand of Light first, Inner Voice second, Soul Element third, Triple Slash fourth. Triple Slash will not be maxed. You can see that by the +1 after the 20, indicating that it was at 19. And I have some buff skill or whatever that's giving it the 1 level. And for the second job, I'm going over these pretty fast because the first job is pretty basic and there's really not much to talk about. Second job is when things start getting interesting. So the unique thing about Dawn Warriors and why they're a unique warrior class is that they have 2 modal shifts. And all of his skills are based off of lunar and solar forms. In second job, you get the first of the 2, which is Falling Moon. It's going to be your lunar mode. What it does is it gives you 20% crit rate, doubles your number of lines that your skills hit, and decreases your final damage by 60%. Now, a lot of you might be asking, why do I even want to use this skill? It gives me double the lines, but it reduces my final damage by over half. So what's the point if I'm losing DPS in the long run? Well, Falling Moon is actually very, very, very beneficial in the later games, and even I think in the early games because of the not. You also get the crit rate chance, so your lines have a chance to hit a critical hit, which increases your damage by a lot. But besides from that, I just want to explain why doubling your lines and decreasing final damage by 60% can be so beneficial. I'll go over the skill a little bit more later, but Rift of Damnation is pretty much your main bursting skill. It's based off of your hyper skill Styx Crossing, which does 2900% damage. For most classes, that's unheard of. You don't have a skill that you can spam that does this high of percent damage. And basically, Dawn Warriors are very strong in the sense that they can hit cap really easily. If a 4000% damage like skill or a 3000% damage skill isn't a lot, you hit cap relatively quickly compared to most classes, like bursting skills. So what happens is you charge up Rift of Damnation and you hit. As you can see here, I'm hitting about 900 mil. I'm relatively weak compared to what you would consider an endgame player. An endgame player would hit cap very quickly, and that's where Falling Moon comes in very handy. Because although your damage is capped at a visual 10 billion damage, your damage can exceed 10 billion. Um, but the game hard caps it. That doesn't say that after you hit 10 billion damage, your damage stops increasing. Say if your damage lines actually hit 15 billion, but the game hard caps it at 10 billion, you'll be doing 10 billion damage lines when if you were to remove the cap, it would be much higher. So with Falling Moon, that final damage that's cut off of your skills, say if you minus 60%, say if your river Styx crossing was hitting 20 billion damage, after you apply this Falling Moon, it'll hit a roughly like 8 to 9 billion, I think. Excuse my math. And if that's the case, you doubled your lines and you're doing 1 bill lines less than if you were to just charge it at 6 line or 5 lines and hit cap, because no matter what, you will never break the damage cap of 10 billion damage per line. So with this, you can lose final damage, but it doesn't really affect your final damage because your damage is already so high and you get to double your lines. So in a sense, if you were in a perfect world where you were infinitely strong, um, Falling Moon just doubles your damage without losing the damage percent, so to speak. And that's why late game Dawn Warriors have such a good time hitting damage cap with a lot of lines, because this skill has 3000% damage. Okay, now to continue. Soul Speed, Dawn Warriors are very nice in the sense that they're one of the classes that can break the attack speed cap. For those of you who don't know, every single in Korean Maplestory, damage cap is capped at, I believe, 1, and that is more or less the fastest your character can attack. In GMS, we have a Extreme Monster Park Green Potion that allows us to break damage the attack speed cap, so that Dawn Warriors, for those of you who don't know, have a very kind of fast attack, and with this you can increase it to maximize DPS, and this buff is basically just to help you do that. It gives you attack speed plus 2, which is a lot. So with that being said, it pretty much the rest of your buffs and your later jobs enables you to not need the attack speed legendary inner ability, which can be a pain to roll. So I'll go over the ideal legendary inner ability in a bit, but as you can see, I do not have attack speed, and that's perfectly fine. Sword Mastery gives you 50% mastery to one-handed and two-handed. Divine Hand gives you another 20 passive attack. Inner Harmony is a skill that almost every class has. Gives you 20 of your 40 of your primary stat and 20 of your secondary stat. All good. And now to go into your second job mobbing skills, you have Flicker, which is going to be your dash. I still use this skill to this day because it's the only dash you get besides your fourth job teleport, not a dash. And I'll go over why I call it a teleport versus a dash when I get to the fourth job. And then you have Trace Cut, which basically just slashes behind you. So if I were to hotkey this, you can see it just hits behind me. And now I'll go into Falling Moon. So if you were to take off Falling Moon, and then up to this point, the only other buff you have is Soul Element, forget this. This is just more attack, I believe. Yeah, 50 attack. So it's not really any mechanic buff. Falling Moon, as you can see, if I were to attack with this, it automatically casts Falling Moon. I don't have a choice. It has to be on for me to cast this skill. And a lot of skills are like this. The only skill that doesn't require any lunar or solar mode is Triple Slash. As you can see, I can use it and it doesn't trigger any mode to modal buff. And is Styx another one? Yes, it is. I'll go versus River 6 when I get to the hyper skills. It's one of your most important skills. But for second job, you have Trace Cut and Flicker. These skills actually change once you get into third job and you get your next modal shift. And that skill is Rising Sun. Rising Sun gives you 30% attack damage and 1 attack speed. And it says cannot be used with Falling Moon. And this is where a lot of people say, isn't Rising Sun infinitely times better because you get +1 attack speed and 30% damage. I think in the earlier jobs, yes. If you were to use Rising Sun and then say go back to using your Shadow Tackle, uh, yeah, it attacks faster and does more damage, but you don't get the line benefit that you would if you were to use Falling Moon. Buster also turns yellow or orange, and that's basically how you keep track of your modes. Your lunar skills will always be blue, and your sun solar modes will always be yellow and orange. Um, but this comes into handy fourth job when you get a skill that lets you combine both moon and sun, and I'll go over that in just a minute as after I explain all these skills. Truesight is a skill that basically gives you a small damage buff to your entire party by debuffing the boss. This is very helpful in bosses where you actually do it with a party, like Lotus, Damien, Lucid, Will, Darknell, all the Arcane River bosses, right? So if I can show you right here, if I were to use this skill, you can see I'm hitting about 150 to 180 mil lines without Truesight when I cast it. The damage lines are consistently higher, which is kind of hard to tell, but if I were to do a DPS test, it would be more obvious. And I think I will do that at the end of this video, so if you want to keep watching, if you don't want to keep watching, you just skip ahead to it, or you can just watch the rest of this video and understand how this class works. Soul Guardian gives you a passive HP and defense boost. Will of Steel gives you abnormal status, elemental resistance, damage intake minus, and recovers 5% of your HP every 4 seconds. Now I really like Dawn Warrior because he does have this skill that passively recovers HP. It saves a lot in the potions, but at the same time that doesn't really matter because one of the biggest cons of Dawn Warrior is how much he consumes MP. Oftentimes when I'm doing my 40-second burst with this skill alone, MP cost 1,000. I mean, that's the wrong skill, my bad. But yeah, MP cost is 1,000 for this, and then number 6 is a 300 MP cost. So if I were to spam that 100 times, that's what, 30,000? 3,000? 30,000 mana, which is already too much. MP consumption is really high, so either way you have to be using your potions. I opt in to use power elixirs or ginger ales because it gives percent MP and not flat. I think most people opt in to use the same 2 potions, usually power elixirs, which you can farm from doing your daily bosses. And your last skill is Inner Voice. It gives you 30 attack power and 40 strength, just another buff. I forgot to mention this in the second job, but what I did first, I put in 1 point to Buster, 1 Shadow Tackle, 1 Falling Moon, and then I pretty much forgot about these two. When these two do give you good damage, you really want the attack speed because the difference between 1 and 2 attack speed, which I'll show you right now, if I were to use a skill, I'll use this triple slash because it doesn't trigger anything. Look how slow it hits. See that massive delay in between each attack? If I were, wait, am I trolling? Oh, if I were to use soul speed, increases my attack speed significantly. So in terms of maxing out your skills, you put 1, 1, 1, 1. I mean, you can't put 1 in here. And then you put the rest into Sword Mastery. Once this gets 5 points, you can pretty much forget about it. And you want to max out Soul Speed. Soul Speed, you don't want to recast it, obviously, all the time. So you want to max this out first before you end up maxing Divine Hand and Inner Harmony. And then from there is what, honestly, you could do these 3 at any given time. I think Falling Moon is significantly worse when it's not maxed. I believe the final damage debuff decreases as the level increases, but I might be wrong. But I use this for the attacks, but it doesn't really matter because you pretty much just want the attack speed from Soul Speed. This, when combined with Rising Sun, makes you attack even faster, as you can see, which is why for third job, I would put 1 point in the Light Merger, 1 point in the Sun Cross, and then maxing out Rising Sun and Inner Voice at the same time. Of course, you want to put 1 point into Soul of the Guardian and Will of Steel just for the slow HP recovery, because it doesn't really matter. because you're going to be using potions anyway, so you might as well forget about these two for now. One skill you don't max is Light Merger. It's pretty useless after third job. I don't even think I used it very much in third job. I guess the only good part about it is in Falling Moon, where you have Moon Shadow. It's actually like a skill that Phantoms have, um, where it kind of hits in like a box area. And I think late game, this is pretty good mobbing skill, but the better mobbing skill for late game is actually Moon Cross. So if I were to hotkey this right now and use my fourth job buffs, keep in mind this is a late game training buff. What happens is it attacks much faster than your fourth job mobbing skill, which is this. So if you were to compare this to this, you attack much faster, and if you can one-shot, it doesn't matter which skill you use because either way you're going to be killing the mob, which is why a lot of people opt into using node stones for this to max out the damage, so it's much easier to train. You don't have to do it. Honestly, this is a very late game thing. You have to do very high damage. I'm currently about 11 to 12 mil range, and this does nowhere near one-shots these mobs. So honestly, don't have to worry about it, but it's just something to keep in mind as you get stronger and stronger playing this class. Um, yeah, and now we go into fourth job, and this is honestly what made this class for me. Your one buff here that you want to max right away, without a doubt, Equinox Cycle. This skill reads that during this time, every time a skill is used, the position changes, activating both Falling Moon and Rising Sun effects. So let's take for example Speeding Sunset, your main bossing skill. Um, you can see right now I'm in Rising Sun. Hold up, my bad. So you can see right now I'm in Rising Sun. Every time I tap this, I change into a different mode. So if you were to hold down your skill, it switches for you and allows you to do this combo where you're jumping up in the air, slashing down, and then, right? This is what your main DPS skill looks like. And this is really good because it enables you to um, max your damage output. It's actually better to switch back and forth than to say hold still and use this. So if you were to look, the damage line, oh, I guess this is not a good example, but I'll show you later when I test out the skills at a real boss. So as you can see, this actually looks kind of slow if you were to compare it to this, and there actually is a difference. Your two main skills for this is Solar Pierce and Speeding Sunset. Solar Pierce is a very good mobbing skill in that it hits 7 enemies and it does a lot of lines, does a lot of damage. It's more or less your main mobbing skill because it has a wide hitbox. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're training. It does the most damage. If you look at here, it's actually the same, 290 and 290. But I think this does more lines. Yeah, it does. Does a significantly higher amount of lines, which is why you'll opt in to use Solar Pierce. I still use Solar Pierce when I'm training just because, as I said, my Sun Cross and Moon Cross are not up to par in damage. And then we get into the teleport skill. So Dawn Warrior is very unique, and I think I've already said this, in that it has both a flash jump, most classes have this except mages, and a dash, and a teleport. It says charges forward slashing the enemy. And it is on a cooldown of about 5 seconds, so this, right there, that's the teleport. And I count this as a teleport instead of a dash because if you recall in my recent Lotus solo, dashes like this don't get through the laser, but this got through. So instead of, if you guys want to watch that, I can link that in the description. But in a lot of cases, teleports are more effective because you can dodge things like the laser in Lotus. This is why I really like Dawn Warrior. You have both the flash jump, so you can move around maps very quickly, but you also have the chance to dash backwards if you say we're training in CLP. If I can get a CLP map, I'd show you. Or I could just KS someone for like 10 seconds. But basically, what happens is I'm teleporting up and down like this, and then when I get down here, I'll dash to the left, And that's that. I'm so sorry to this person. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but I need to make a video. So yeah. Wait till I get back to the town. Um, Wrong button. Impalling Rays is your bind. Um, yeah, everything, most classes have a bind now. It's for 10 seconds, pretty standard, does X amount of damage, doesn't really matter. You just need to know that it stops the boss from doing anything. Um, and then you have your 4 passive buffs. So you have Soul Pledge, which gives you 30 all stat, 10 crit, and 100% knockback resistance. Very, very good buff. Most notably for the knockback resistance. A lot of classes have trouble with knockback because uh, it can really slow down your DPS and your farming if you constantly get moved backward and you're unable to attack for like a second or half a second. Unpredictable gives you monster defense ignore 30% and 15% boss damage. It's a very good, I guess, passive bossing buff. And I don't know if this counts into your ID. I'm pretty sure this counts as an ID line. I might be wrong. Master of the Sword. This is one of the best buffs in the game. I don't care what anybody says. It pretty much improves your buffs from Equinox, your modal forms. As you see, it says 30% and +1 attack speed. This rewrites it to be 55% damage and 2 attack speed. I think this is the buff that gets buffed later on. Instead of damage, you get final damage, which is infinitely times better. I don't understand what it means by the final damage reduction 90%. I'm not quite sure, but that is ultimately what makes your Mooncross skill pretty good. From what I think it decreases this negative 60% debuff by 90%. I might be wrong. I can't really test that right now. But otherwise, you have Call of Cygnus, which is your Maple Warrior. Every class has one. And yeah, that pretty much covers your 0 to 4th job. And if we're going to go in order, I guess the next would be your hyper skills. So I haven't paid much attention into this thing. I know that this is what I have because it's the best for me currently is 20% damage to Speeding Sunset, 20 boss damage. I might end up increasing this if my damage on here becomes irrelevant in mobbing, which I think it already has. But I think the 20% monster defense ignored is much better for late game bossing. But I just haven't changed it because I don't really have a need to. Because I don't really do many bosses that I can't easily solo or do in a party, so it doesn't really matter. But I think ultimately the 3 points in here, I remove the damage plus 20% and give that to IED or monster defense ignored 20%. And those will be your 5 points, dividing your skills. This additional defense is good for party debuffs. Again, if you're playing something, if you're not mobbing and you want to switch every time, it costs about 10 million mesos, and you can increase your party's damage. Now to talk for the active skills, which I think are some of the best skills in the game. You have Soul Forge, which gives you 50 attack power for 180 seconds. As you can see, that's what I have my pet auto buffing me. Glory of the Guardians gives you 10% damage. It applies to all Cygnus classes. It's fine. It's a decent buff if you ever plan on bursting, but 10% damage is pretty irrelevant. Your main skill is going to be Styx Crossing. And holy crap, this skill is insane. So I'm pretty sure I already mentioned this, but if you guys didn't realize, it has 2,900% damage. That is insane. No class has a skill, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. But when I say that no other class has a 2,900% damage skill that can be spammed for a shorter period of time. And you guys may be like, wait, there's a cooldown 30 seconds though. Well, in 5th job, you get a skill that overrides that cooldown, but by but the con is that you decrease the final damage by some percent, 50%, which is fine. It's still 1450% damage. That is insane. So if I were to go charge this up right now, fully buffed, Let me do that real quick. Come on, damage. Yeah, okay. So if I were to charge this up right now, and you know it's fully charged when it turns red, and I were to slam it, as you can see, it was a little laggy, but it was about, I want to say like 1 bill damage lines. It might be a little more obvious in the thing, on the video, but it's crazy. It's crazy high. This is gonna be your main bursting skill, and I can show you what it looks like. So I haven't really gone into the 5th jobs yet, but I'll just show it real quick. So you can see Rift of Damnation. If I were to activate that, I can spam this skill. There's no cooldown for the 30 seconds that this has an uptime for, which makes it very good for the 40-second burst that you have in Lucid. And it also makes this a very good mobbing skill because it has a very wide range of attack. I can hit all 3 platforms in CLP pretty easily with this skill, which is why I prefer to train there. It's a really lazy rotation, which I can make a video on if you guys want to see it. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much all it for the hyper skills. And I can talk about inner ability. So as I already said, the attack speed on Dawn Warrior is high enough to where you don't need attack speed. If you want it because it looks cool or whatever, and I don't even know, go for it. No one's gonna stop you. I'm just letting you know right now that boss damage or attack is gonna be your most beneficial lines. As you can see right now, I have 20% boss damage. I'm probably going to keep that and then save up Honor EXP to re-roll item drop rate and Mesos obtained for when I get level 250 or if I ever get to level 275. I highly doubt that I will. But for now, I'm keeping item drop rate and Mesos obtained because I am farming on this character because I do have to level it up, which means that I have to use it to increase my droplet and Mesos. Oh, excuse me. For the hyperstat, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Uh, I know that getting all these to level 10 and this to 8, this to 5 and 4 makes my bar look really nice, gets me 100% crit rate, gives me damage from strength. I'm pretty sure this isn't optimal. And if you guys want to know how to optimize your hyperstat, you can Google Maplestory hyperstat optimizer and you'll get into this Google Sheets spreadsheet where you just make a copy of it, input all of your stat, gear, and everything. It takes a little bit of time, but it's very worth it. And then you can optimize your hyperstat distribution. I haven't done it yet just because it takes a while, and I don't really need to optimize my final damage at this point on my Dawn Warrior. And now finally for 5th job. So every class has their own 5th job skills. I think Dawn Warrior is super cool in that their skills are very unique, except for Mick Hale, who kind of took Rift of Damnation, but that's fine because Mick Hale is more or less a carbon copy of Dawn Warrior. Yeah, I said it. So let's start off with I guess ideal nodes that you want on Dawn Warrior. You only really have 2 main attacks, so you want to get the 3 main attacks, 2 bossing, 1 mobbing, which is going to be Crush and Divide, Styx Crossing, and Moon Dancer. So for all your modal shifts, those are accounted for, so you don't need double the nodes to get the modal forms of that attack. So say Moon Dancer and Speeding Sunset are the Moon and Sun forms of your bossing skill, but they're accounted for by the same node stone, so that's not really something you have to watch out for. You have Weapon Aura. Every warrior has this. Just sends out a wave that does damage. And then you have the 3 unique skills. This is honestly one of the greatest combination of 5th job skills I think I've seen. You have Soul Eclipse, which is a full map attack that more or less clears the entire map for 30 seconds, and it's on a 180-second cooldown. Rift of Damnation, which I've just showed you guys, which removes the damage cap on one of the highest base damage attacks in the game and lets you spam it. And then the 3rd skill, which I haven't gone over, is Celestial Dance. Pretty much, if you guys have played the Thief class and you know what Shadow Partner is, this is pretty much that. You're making a Shadow Partner that hits the opposite um, modal skill. So say if I'm in Rising Sun form, I'm gonna use Speeding Sunset. Your Celestial Dance, your shadow partner, is gonna hit the Falling Moon form of Speeding Sunset, which is Moon Dancer. So basically, increases your DPS by a lot. It does 49% of the final damage, and then it has a chance to spawn an attack that does, as you can see, 1960% for 3 attacks or 980% for 6 attacks. It's insane. I love this class because its 5th job skills are honestly very nice to look at, and they're also very cool. I can demonstrate Soul Eclipse real quick by going back to MTS2. Oh man, it's been 30 minutes. So I'm just gonna use this so you can, oh my, I can't believe I failed that. I'll use up all my buffs. I'll sit in the middle of the map, and oftentimes what I do is I have a very nice rotation at CLP where I pretty much have 100% uptime of these 3 skills of Rift, Celestial Dance, and Soul Eclipse. But for this case, I'm just going to show off how it works. I'm going to stand in the middle of the map and press G, which is my hotkey for Soul Eclipse. And as you can see, it recently got buffed to 6 lines of damage, JK 7 lines of damage, and I think before it was 4. But as you can see, it clears the whole map and all I'm doing is standing still. So for this 30 seconds, I'm literally chilling. And just for this sake, if you were to cast it again while it's in the middle of the cast before its cooldown, it does a massive burst of damage. So if I were to press it again, it slices the screen and look at those lines. It's crazy. That is a very large, I guess, boost to your 40-second DPS if you can have it last as long as possible in its like full map attack form before you do the Equinox divide, is what they call it. Triggering explosions 5 times at a certain interval, max enemies hit damage 1950, 15 attacks, uh, invincible while casting. Insane. I guess now after I've shown all these skills, I can go into Balrog and show off each of the different attacks just so you guys get a look. And if you guys have been watching, oh man, do I really have to walk? Do I really have to walk? I really have to walk. If you guys have been watching my bossing videos, you'll see the different skills that I have. I don't want to go to Sleepywood. um, it's pretty nuts. Oh man, I hate this so much. Yeah, it's why I like Dawnware. It's fun shifting back and forth, but it's also fun looking at the skills. They're very aesthetic, I think. But yeah, here, Balrog, for you guys who don't know, the first like few minutes in Balrog, you can't do damage to him, so it's just free hits on the boss. So I'm just gonna, this is how I go in, that's not how I go in, this is how I go in. I'll clear out everything, and then I'll move this out of the way. So as you can see, I'll come down here and I can just attack and his HP bar won't change. I'm doing about 350 mil lines of damage to 400 mil. If I were to use this debuff, I get an increase in final damage. As you can see, the damage does generally look higher. It's 5%, so it's not going to be that notable. So first off, I'm going to go over Rift of Damnation. This skill is insane. And I'm also going to buff up Weapon Aura just because it's an active that you can see. So if I'm doing this, you can see I'm spamming and it's hitting 1.3 bill lines. And I'm just going. If I were to turn on Battle Analysis, which I probably should have done, and started and recorded, damage kind of racks up. I only want to be hitting one of these though. And this is significantly stronger than your 4th job main bossing skill. As you can see, I've already done about 270 billion damage in like 17 seconds, which isn't a lot, but for me, it's pretty good. And if I charge it up, you can see it does double what the normally was because this decreases by 50%. So now I can go over Celestial Dance. So what I do for Celestial Dance oftentimes is I'll use up all my buffs, and then I'll cast it along with Solar Eclipse, start Battle Analysis, rewrite, and you can see those are all the lines. I don't know if you can see my shadow partner, but he's definitely there. And you can see the attacks. As you can see both yellow and blue at the same time. But I'll let this go for more or less 40 seconds and just show you guys how strong it is. In this, you want to watch out. I usually hit it again when it's about at 5 seconds, so it does that, and I can keep attacking, and it just does so many lines. It's a massive boost to the DPS. As you can see, I'm at 600 billion damage. I'm about to hit 1 billion. I don't think I will though, just because I'm not strong enough. And also, I think this is a little off because it also accounts for the damage done to his head. But yeah, in the 40 seconds, I do about 800 bill. Um, Keep in mind this is really off because I'm also hitting his head. But if I used Rift of Damnation, it actually has a higher DPS than your Celestial Dance. So oftentimes, what your 40-second combo is going to look like is you'll cast Soul Eclipse, and then you'll cast Rift of Damnation. You will use up Rift of Damnation until it expires, and then cast Celestial Dance. By that time, you would have already triggered Soul Eclipse and Equinox Divide while hitting it with, and you can do that as you're hitting with Celestial Dance. It's a very strange combo. I can try to do it, but I don't think I'll have enough time in Balrog because I think my cooldowns are longer than the amount of time I have left to attack him. But I'll sit in here and wait just in case it's not. I believe I can start doing damage in like 4 seconds. And if not, then I'll see what happens. Yeah. So that's that. I guess I'll just kill it now. So I can get out of here. Defeat easy Balrog for the first time. But yeah, that's pretty much how the bossing works on this champ. I don't know what this drops, but I'll figure out anyways. Sick. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm trying to see if I forgot anything. I don't think I did. I'm not going to go over all the generic decent skills or the will skill because I think that's common knowledge at this point. If you don't know about it, you'll learn as soon as you hit level 235. But yeah, I guess I can, oh, there's one thing. So like most warrior classes, you can choose between a one-handed or a two-handed weapon, and then your secondary will also depend on that. The only other option besides two-handed sword and the Era of Brilliance is one-handed sword and a shield. Now, I don't think that's very good because one of these buffs is two-handed sword mastery. Um, where is it? Where is it? Is it not in this job? Okay, well, I swear there was a skill that was like two-handed sword mastery, and you get attack speed for it. But I might be wrong. I don't know. I just know that a lot of people prefer to use two-handed sword over the one-handed and shield. Although this shield you can Star Force it, it's not that valuable. I don't know why I can't find it. It's kind of bothering me. This, no. I don't know where it is. Alright, forget it. Take my word for it. Or if not, you can go look into it yourself. But you definitely want to use a two-handed sword on Dawn Warrior. Honestly, it sucks for this class because if you do clear Hard Lucid and you get the one-handed sword drop, that sucks because you're never gonna use it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this class. If you have any more questions, if there's something I forgot about, leave it down below and I'll try to do some research and talk about it. This is, once again, just my knowledge on what this class has to offer, what my opinions are, and I might have repeated myself a couple times, but you know, that was intentional because I just feel so strongly that a lot of the skills of this class are so cool and so unique. And the class in general is very unique. Not only is it have a teleport, but once again, I think I already said it, it's the only class in the game where you're shifting back. It's not the only class in the game actually, but it's one of the few classes in the game where you're shifting back and forth between two modes that are more or less equally strong and like beneficial to the classes overall. It's not like most classes where one form is bossing, one form is mobbing. Both forms are very good for either, and it's just, I don't know. I think you guys get the point by now, so I'm just going to say thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to subscribe, click the like button, click the bell. And for those of you who made it through this 40-minute long video, check the description down below where I have a link to my Discord channel. It's public, where I offer boss carries whenever I have the extra runs to spare, when I have time, whatever. So Yeah, thanks for watching as always, guys, and be sure to stay tuned for more Maple Story content.